world surrounded by franchises, reboots, and shared universes. An elite team of podcasters will risk body and soul to investigate the depths of intellectual properties, one multiverse, subgenre, and trend at a time. Who are we? We're the IP Squad. Welcome back to the IP Squad, and it's a whole new mini-series. Oh, folks, we just got through, barely survived, the Pulps. The Pulp and Comic Strip Hero season. So I was thinking maybe it's time we head to space, where no one can hear you scream.
You know, you say that, John, but I feel like the audio quality, at least that we shoot for, should really enable some scream-to-ear technology in a space environment.
That's true. And that voice you hear is my new partner for this investigation, though you're probably used to hearing us together on stuff. That's Mike Gorgone.
The old Gorgone Campbell two-hander back again.
It does.
This time, wrangling some weird, gooey aliens.
It does feel like, yeah, the one things I like about this show is each miniseries has its own vibe because of my co-host. And so I had my problem children, the Jones boys, who were wrecking half the city. I was constantly on the phone with the mayor. Now it feels like I put the blues back on. I'm back with my old partner. And we're talking about space movies, which feels very familiar for us.
Well, look, we'll get into it, but you and I are old hands at talking about space franchises, and I don't think this one's any different, though this one weirdly keeps looping back to Earth.
It always is threatening to get there, but supposedly the next thing that is the Alien TV series is just called Alien Earth, so I guess that makes sense. And what's that? I just ripped the Band-Aid off of what we're talking about. This season on the show, we are talking about aliens and predators, and sometimes when the aliens and predators fight each other.
And when the two twixt do they meet, none shall be the victor.
Yeah. Well, I do love, one of the things we do love to talk about on this show is the promotion of these movies. And I will say, whatever quality that movie is, that is a chef's kiss of a tagline for that first AVP.
Agreed.
Mwah.
I mean,
amazing.
Look, we'll get into my own history with AVP going forward, but I had so much built-in yearning for that film that when that I remember that original gray poster with just the embossed Predator mask and and xenomorph head on there with whoever wins, we lose. It was just oh yes,
I want it.
We're doing it.
I know. I think all of us were ready for that, and we'll get to whether or not that movie delivers on it. Spoiler, it doesn't. But yeah, that's it. So the first two series of this show were focused on adaptations of things, the Stephen King and then the Pulp heroes, Pulp and Comic Strip Heroes. This miniseries is a little bit different because these are both franchises made exclusively as films. Started as individual films that grew into franchises. And then the really interesting thing about this is then the two franchises grew together.
Yes, due to a studio Easter egg that appeared in one of the films, namely Predator 2.
It's a classic example of don't feed the nerds, folks. Wait, what was that?
Even by the time we got to that point in Predator 2, and we'll get there in our discussions, obviously this week we're starting off with the OG Alien.
Yep.
But already you talk about a franchise that started as a film, but even by the time we got to that mind revelation of, my God, the two exist in the same universe, we already had Alien and Predator comic books and video games and all novels. And look, if I don't get through this franchise without talking about Earth Hive, I'll have not done my due diligence.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, that's and the thing was just that, with a lot of stuff we love and the shared universes, It was just the convenience of Fox made both of these movies.
Uh-huh.
It just was like, oh, well, wait a minute. There's actually no barrier to this, so why not? You know?
Mm-hmm.
But yes, let's go all the way back to 1979, which is when Alien came out. Ridley Scott's Alien. An interesting time in film, of course, because we're transitioning, and I think this movie, and excuse me as I maybe get a little hyperbolic here, but this movie is one of the greatest examples of the transition between eras in film, because there's still a little bit of the grit of the 70s in this, but there's also the high gloss production value and genre storytelling of the 80s. This is a real interesting transition of film, because I think the cast and characters are very 70s, but the movie itself is much more 80s.
Sigourney Weaver's hair bridges that gap like nobody's business in this film.
Oh man, her hair is gigantic in this film. But no, there's no question that, like, you know, if you're making an Alien movie today, or even 5 years after this, Harry Dean Stanton's probably not on your crew. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about Alien. And as I already made the reference to, usually the way these end is I'll give you the tagline for the next movie as a little preview. But of course, since this is our first one, you got to talk about one of the greatest taglines in the history of film.
Yeah, I mean, look, we can talk about the tagline, but that also like comes in with the poster, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it so goes hand in hand when you have just the so emblematic of a franchise as a whole. The black poster with the egg outlined in light with the green crack emerging from it, with just alien across the top, and beneath the egg in space, no one can hear you scream.
I mean, talk about, this is something that I think is a little lost in modern film promotion, right? Is they give you nothing almost. But it is so, like, if I saw this, I'd be like, ooh, what? What is this?
I mean, it's mysterious, it's alluring, it promises darkness and something disturbing, and look, it delivers on all of those pitches, if you ask me.
No question. And because this movie, what you got to keep in mind, so this is 2 years after Star Wars. And the thing about this movie, like a lot of science fiction movies and genre movies post Star Wars, exists because of Star Wars.
I feel like that is a context I want to bring to this film. It's something I kept thinking about while watching this film again for the review we're doing right now. Mm-hmm. Is you and I have constantly put ourselves in the mindset in our other show, May the Panel Be With You. Go check it out on YouTube, youtube.com/@punchupentertainment. Yeah. But we constantly have to put ourselves in the mindset of people who existed at a time in which Star Wars was but a single movie.
Yes.
And so what a Star Wars wasn't this big sprawling franchise with, like I said, novels and comics and video games and TV shows and everything else associated with Star Wars that we know today. It was a movie called Star Wars, and then a Christmas special. We won't talk about that.
But it's like the Star Wars is such a bomb that goes off in the film business, right? That hits, and all of a sudden it's like, forget everything we've been thinking about, because Star Wars is the antithesis of everything the 70s had been about. The movement from the, you know, Hollywood basically collapses in the 1960s because they're spending tons of money on these high gloss musicals, historical epics that people aren't interested in anymore. So the pendulum totally swings to the Hollywood 70s new age, and everything is gritty, real, it's dark, it's bleak. This is what the world is like outside your window. And then Star Wars comes along and it's the ultimate fantasy that takes you back to being a child again, right? And so all of a sudden everybody goes, wait, is that what people want? Oh God, we gotta find these. And suddenly everyone is scrambling to find their Star Wars. And this is Fox, who made Star Wars, going, how do we get another Star Wars? And the answer is, on the desk of whoever it was at Fox, I don't know if it was actually Alan Ladd Jr. who was the president of Fox, but whoever, one of their executives, was a script entitled Star Beast, which was the original title of this movie.
Whoever decided to change it to just Alien is a genius and deserves a raise.
They talk about this because I mentioned you beforehand. I did watch or at least a piece of the 3-hour documentary that's on the 4K of this. They talk about it was literally somebody going, nobody's ever just called a movie Alien. Hey, should we call it that? Because weirdly, nobody's done that. And that's how.
Think like back in the 50s when making alien horror films was all the rage.
It is it's one of those things where it's like, was it just too obvious? Because they made back in the 50s, it was always like aliens versus astronauts or Earthmen versus the moon people or whatever. There's always
or this island Earth or the being from the stars who walks among us.
Stay tuned for the future series that's definitely, you have no idea how much Brandon and I have planned, but Campbell and Jones Meet the Aliens is going to happen someday, and we'll be talking about all of that stuff. But
sure.
Yeah. So, and here's the thing about this movie came so close to being made by Roger Corman for no money. They were very close to Dan O'Bannon. I should mention the original writers of this movie, Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett, who basically came up with an idea for their pitch was, because the other movie that was also springboarded the blockbuster era was Jaws, and their pitch was it's Jaws in space. Was their initial very easy
just
breakdown.
For more context, when I have that reaction to the name Roger Corman, it's because Roger Corman, famous schlock producer and director, like makes movies for $0. Sometimes those movies are a tax shelter or a rights dodge that never get released.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
He would make a movie called Star Beast.
He was a guy who was famous for never making a movie for more than $1 million. And and I love Roger Corman, but he was a schlockmeister. It was all the business to him. It's, if I invest this much, I can make this much, I can do this. He wasn't while he spoke very eloquently, go and listen to, if you're not one of our patrons, and I swear we're not just plugging other stuff, but we did a whole series over on our Patreon about Vincent Price movies, and he made a number of movies with Roger Corman. So that podcast ended up kind of becoming a Roger Corman podcast for pieces of it, and we talk a lot about the mindset of Roger Corman. But basically, it was like they were, according to this documentary, they were right about to sign away Star Beast, and the Corman movie would have been called Star Beast, of course.
Oh, 100%.
With that, because this is, and they said they even wrote it as that. They go like, this is something we thought, because it's basically one set. There's only 8 characters. This could be something that could be made on the cheap, and we can just get something made and get our names out there. Because Dan O'Bannon is coming off of having worked with John Carpenter on Dark Star, which weirdly we were just recording something before this where Dark Star came up. But Dan O'Bannon is coming off of being Carpenter's partner on that, and this was his sort of stab at doing something on his own. But anyway, and before finally somebody goes, oh, wait, I know some other producers. You might not want to go with Corman, because that might be a bad idea. This is pretty good, the script. You might want to go with these guys, and those guys ended up being the crew of Walter Hill, David Giler, and Gordon Carroll. And I don't know the other two well, but Walter Hill is one of my favorite filmmakers, director of The Warriors. I was going to say,
Walter Hill is the only name that stands out among that list for me.
We're both big fans of The Warriors, which is a Walter Hill film, but he goes on to make things like 48 Hours, and action guy. Westerns and action is his thing, but he does see the premise of this. And then I will say, the best part of the documentary to watch is just the section about writing, because it's then all these old guys arguing about who added what to the script.
Well, and that's the thing with movies that become, I don't know. I mean, look, Alien did very well in theaters, but I think it is like hard to understand the cultural impact at the time because it was swimming in the milieu of Star Wars, right?
Yes.
So when you have a movie that eventually becomes this legacy property, because there was no guarantee of that when, even as well as this movie did, I just had the box office stats up because it cost like 11 million to
11
make.
million. And
it ends up closing out at a total worldwide gross of 108 million. So it does very well.
Yes, very well. I mean, and that time, that's huge. I mean, this was a time when movies didn't make $100 million.
Yeah.
Like now that's like, oh, 100 million is actually kind of not doing great today. But back then that was like, Jesus, that's possible?
Well, actually, hold on. That's adjusted because the original worldwide gross was 78.9. Because that total also includes a 2003 director's cut re-release,
Yes, that's right.
which made like 5 million worldwide. Whoa, for a re-release? That's wild.
Well, because it was sort of a long promised director's cut. So I think that was sort of a thing where like people had been wanting to see, like Ridley had always talked about, there were a couple of things I didn't get in there. So that I think was a big reason where it was like talked about.
Is that the cut where they like find Dallas in the
Correct.
weird cocoon?
Correct. That's the biggest difference, I would say, between the two things. And it was always rumored, there was a scene where they showed what happened to Dallas. It's like, what? And so it's like, it's going to be in the, because I remember that was all the buzz when that was coming out. It's like, you're going to see it, man. And I will say this. I don't know that you need that.
Well, I was actually shocking. Probably no one. I follow the like alien subreddit, which is LVS 246, or whatever that string of numbers is. Sorry, I'm blanking on it at the moment.
Oh yeah,
LV 426. Yeah, that's it.
Right.
But there was a debate the other day that I actually found pretty engaging, and obviously take internet debates with a grain of salt.
Right.
But the idea of, do you prefer the like purely face huggers is the way aliens like procreate, or does the transformation cocoon also spark joy? And I think the vast majority of people land on, why not both? I think that's cool that they have like multiple ways of altering people and violating them.
Well, especially because there's the whole thing about when, and I love it, Ash's whole thing about, this is a perfect organism. So you do think about, this is a thing with a lot of redundancies, right? It's like, okay, not only is it super strong and fast, but if you cut it, it bleeds acid. So the idea that it has multiple ways of procreating makes sense.
Yeah. And we'll talk about the evolution of the xenomorph.
Oh, yeah.
You can't just as like a concept going into this movie, but also across this series, I think, because it does go through stages of evolution of just like, okay, what sort of threat do we consider this creature? I think in this movie, Alien, it is far more supernatural than it would become in later films.
Well, something I think, and we obviously we can't talk about this movie or this franchise in general without talking about the great Ridley Scott.
Totally.
By the way, his second movie. That's is movie wild. 2 for this guy. That's crazy.
Ridley Scott might in fact be a good filmmaker. I don't know.
Look, Ridley Scott, I'm pretty biased. He's like one of my filmmaking heroes. I don't love everything he did. He's a guy who is definitely quantity over quality, but when he hits, he really hits, man. And particularly in the science fiction genre, because of course after this he makes Blade Runner.
Sure, but he also did make Alien Covenant and Exodus: Gods and Kings. So I don't know. He swings a lot, and
but he also
made real hard.
But he also made The Martian, which fucking rules.
He also made The Martian.
So
but he also made Russell Crowe and Robin Hood.
That's the thing. Is he's a guy who likes to work, and so. Yeah. I definitely think he's a guy who, some of the stuff maybe he's more invested in. He's also got a lot of ideas where it's like, what if I made a biblical epic when no one's doing that? Oh, no one's interested. Okay, that's fine. I'll go over here then. Like.
What if I made a biblical epic but also had rock monsters in it?
Yeah.
Rock monsters?
No. That wasn't him. That was Aronofsky on Noah.
Oh, sorry.
He did the Moses one. Aronofsky did the rock monster Noah. I understand your confusion because it's Russell Crowe, who is a Ridley Scott guy. But
you're right. I'm sorry.
He did the Christian Bale Moses movie.
Christian Bale as Moses. How could I forget?
Because that casting was so perfect. And I love Christian Bale, but that one I was like, you guys. No, so but he is at this point an up and comer. He's made a movie called The Duelist, which I highly recommend people check out. His first movie is excellent. A really cool, interestingly, he just made Napoleon, but a very cool movie set amongst the Napoleonic Wars that I recommend. But so he's coming into this not as a hugely known quantity or blockbuster filmmaker, but sort of a guy with promise. And then even crazier, this is his second movie. This is Sigourney Weaver's first movie.
I mean,
which is fucking crazy. Because instantly she becomes an icon.
And like icon is the right word, right? Because she becomes emblematic of the like fierce like woman's sci-fi protagonist, and will forever be like, the defense mechanism of chodes online who's like, well, we like real women characters like Ripley.
Yeah. Or, I mean, just in general, she is in the Han Solo camp, right? Of when people are writing screenplays, they go, I want a Ripley type. In the same way that they go, we need a Han Solo character. I need a Ripley character. And actually, I would say when you go forward in the franchise, and she eventually, because we're going to have her for quite a while, of course.
Totally.
But in the post-Sigourney Weaver things, she's so iconic, I think it's actually damaged the franchise. That'll be because it's still, even seeing the trailer for the newest movie, which neither one of us have seen as of the recording of this. Did you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, Gorgone saw it. I haven't seen it. So I'll have a first-time reaction when we get to it. But even still, just in the promotion, the main character of that is very Ripley-esque in at least visualization.
I think there is a tendency in a lot of the post-Sigourney Alien films for the female leads of those movies to eventually, the movie crams them into a Ripley mold by the end of the film, and you can feel the film sort of distorting around this impact tremor that is the character of Ripley.
Because one of the genius things about this first movie that now we don't have, but if you think about this, once again, as we're talking, putting ourselves back in the mindset of 1979, you don't know Ripley's the main character.
That's actually, I was shocked rewatching it again for this this discussion we're having. I sort of was like, I know she's like kind of a background character right up until she really isn't, but I hadn't quite clocked just how long that takes. It's like an hour into this film before she sort of takes control of the movie as the protagonist.
She because like in the first part of the movie, she's kind of the person like, you guys, excuse me, I don't know if that, but it's like, then eventually she's like, all right, fuckers, like, let's go.
It's really the confrontation between her and Dallas when they're getting back to the ship with Kane having gotten face-huggered.
Yeah.
That like, okay, there's the conflict of the film now, and Ripley is the character who is like trying to shout down the idiocy that will get them all killed.
Who did I saw somewhere a meme years ago that's always stuck in there. It's like, Alien is a movie about how nobody listens to the smart woman and they all die because of it. It's kind of true.
Though, I will say, I would argue that more people die because of that stupid cat than anything else.
Oh, no, don't bag on Jonesy.
How many people get killed because somebody's has to go back for the cat?
Gotta have Jonesy, man. I got no problem with that.
I'm just saying, Jonesy watched Harry Dean Stanton die and enjoyed it. That's all I'll say.
You know what? Ridley Scott, I had forgotten, he does go to that close-up that does appear to just be the cat going, that's right. Brett is dying. It's happening in front of me. It's so, no, but that is an interesting thing. And that was something that was very conscious in Ridley Scott's design. He did not want movie stars in this. He wanted, and the other thing he wanted is, he says, and he goes, I knew this was going to be such a bitch, technically, of a shoot. I needed actors I didn't have to direct, really. I needed really solid actors. So we went and and Sigourney Weaver at this point had made a name for herself on Broadway. She's really well-respected theater actor. So he wanted people with just real chops that I don't have to hold their hand on these characters. The other thing he did was extensive rehearsals to get everybody very comfortable with each other.
Well, and wasn't there the, like, I don't know if this is hearsay or not, but the idea that, like, the way this was written, you could kind of slot any actor into any character, and what you're going for isn't necessarily a well-written character. You're going for any actor can fill these shoes.
So one of the things they talked about was originally the script was written, it was all men, all the characters were men, and then literally at some point someone just added a note on the front cover that said, actually, these can be either gender. So, and that's why they only are referred to by their last names. And they were just like, yeah, exactly. They just started to open it up to go like, I don't, because somebody was just like, well, could Ripley be a woman? And apparently the writers are just like, I mean, I guess.
Because yeah, why not?
Yeah, and so
turns out the first step to writing a good like female lead is just write them like a person.
Yeah.
Who knew?
And that's the thing about it, because like on paper, and I've heard people who talk this at the time, it's like Dallas kind of seems like he's gonna be the hero when it starts because he's the captain. He's Tom Skerritt, who was a little bit like everybody in this. Sigourney Weaver had never been in a movie, but everybody in this had credits before this. I mean, Yaphet Kotto had been a Bond villain, for God's sakes.
Sure, and like Harry Dean Stanton had been like a funny character actor all over the like 60s and 70s.
They weren't unfamiliar faces, but he didn't want stars where you're like, if they had put Robert Redford in this, you're like, Robert Redford's going to kill the alien.
Ian Holm wasn't Bilbo yet.
It's a long way away from being Bilbo here, but yeah.
Is that what he was like before Bilbo? What do you think he was best known for? This, right?
Yeah, yeah, I definitely think so. And because he's one of those. That's always the case with these guys, though, right? Is extremely well-established British actors. Like, didn't you play a robot though in something?
Fifth Element.
I do love him in Fifth Element. He's great in that.
Yeah, as like the priest guy.
But then in between are all like prestige BBC productions and stuff like that. It's like, but that's like, what space movies were you in though? He was in Brazil. I mean, he was in Gilliam, working character. I think he was also just one of those guys. People were like, oh yeah. But Bilbo definitely, made a big impression. But yeah. So and then you have Veronica Cartwright, who was a child actress. She. I always get this confused. She was not on Lost in Space. Her sister was, because both of the Cartwright sisters were child actors.
Yeah, I don't really know her from much of anything other than like occasional TV appearances.
Yeah, she's a working character actress, but like, yeah, okay, she was not the one that was on Lost in Space. That was her sister. But like, she did a Twilight Zone. She's the little girl in The Birds. So like around. So once again, but not like an instant like, oh, well, Veronica Cartwright's in this. That's big. They were very smart about it. And they also cast, and this is something previous co-host, past and future co-host Brandon Jones brought up about this movie is it's not a glamorous group. This whole idea of these are blue collar workers. And they feel that way.
They're scuzzy space truckers, basically.
I mean, immediately when they get out of their hibernation pods, Yaphet Kotto and Harry Dean Stanton are going like, hey, what's the cut, man? Where's my money? Let's talk.
We're thinking about, like, don't we deserve a bigger cut? Huh?
Yeah. And the whole reason that they even go to the planet that they've, received the supposed distress signal from is because it's like, if you don't, we won't pay you.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting fact, I was looking for it this time around. The Weyland-Yutani logo is like basically not seen in this movie. You see the words Weyland-Yutani on some of the computers, but like that logo is so indicative of this franchise now at this point, and you just don't see it in this movie. I found that interesting.
This is one of those franchises where I think a lot of people conflate the first two movies. Not so much they're very different movies, but the world of it, because actually a lot of the world establishing stuff is in the second movie. But
That's true. When you start dealing with the corporate, what's his name, corporate shithead character,
Burke. Yeah, Paul Reiser, who we'll be talking about next week. But yeah,
a classic corporate shithead, Paul Reiser.
Yep. By the way, do you know Paul Reiser's writing an Alien comic for Marvel right now?
No.
Yeah.
That's kind of great.
I love it. He's like, oh yeah, I got ideas. That's awesome though. But yeah. But
he's not writing Avengers versus Aliens, is he?
No, he's writing What If Aliens, and it's what if his character survived aliens.
All right. I'll give him that one.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. There's this thing about too, like when you talk about this is made because of Star Wars, but it's also kind of the opposite of Star Wars in a lot of ways. It's dark. It's slower. The characters are not heroes.
but you immediately see it as a response to Star Wars when we start with this panning shot across the
Yes.
outer hull of the Nostromo, and you can't help but compare it to the opening shot of Star Wars with the Star Destroyer chasing the Tantive
100%.
4, right?
The and I think a lot of that is there's not only that, but it's also like before Star Wars, this would have gone to Corman because that's where sci-fi lived. All of a sudden, studios are going, oh shit, we should put resources into sci-fi. Because I will say, actually, watching this again the other day, this movie still looks really good. Like aside from like the computer systems and stuff being very 70s, but like there's not a lot of stuff where you're like, ooh, that hasn't aged well.
No, because almost all of it's practical, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even the exterior, like spaceship stuff, is all done with models.
Yep.
So it's only ever going to look so bad, right? Like,
Yep.
obviously, you can tell there's some scale issues here and there. And if you look close, you might see a tennis ball glued to the side of a spaceship or whatever.
Yeah, but it's. I mean, watching this in the 4K restoration, which really reveals a lot of those cracks, at least nothing that distracted me.
But I think this is such a refutation of Star Wars. Maybe not a refutation, but it's in conversation with Star Wars, because you have Star Wars open up with this sweeping shot across these two spaceships with the big blaring John Williams score. This is doing something similar visually in stark silence.
Oh,
like
this
you're
movie
immediately creating contrast.
Well, because this movie is all about tension, right? It's all of not very much. In fact, one of the things actually that I kind of once again, one of the reasons I prefer the theatrical cut is Ridley Scott actually went in and cut out sections of this movie, 15 seconds there, because he felt it moved too slow. And that's where I'm like, I actually disagree with Ridley Scott on that. The slowness, the quiet is part of what makes this movie so scary.
Because I think it's about an hour into this film before we get to the facehugger is attached to Kane. That's when he gets back to the ship.
Yeah.
So up until that point, and then it's a 1 hour, 57-minute movie.
Yeah.
So for the first hour of that is just this slow plodding, trying to figure out where we fit into this universe of like scummy space truckers hauling this thing. They get woken up when they're not at their destination. The company, whatever that is, tells them they need to land at this thing, investigate a thing, or they won't get paid.
Right.
Everyone's sort of reluctantly going along with it. Ian Holm is standing in the background looking creepy sometimes, and that's all we know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another genius of the title, right? As you know, the movie called Aliens, so you're also sitting there going, where's the alien? What's gonna, and because you don't know, when you don't know all this stuff, like now it's one of those things where it's become so iconic. But I've talked to like my dad and stuff who saw this movie when it came out, and it was just like we were all just sitting in the theater like, Jesus Christ, what was this gonna, it's all tension. Because what I was gonna say earlier is Ridley Scott talked about it, he's like, oh, I immediately read the script and went like, oh, got it, it's a haunted house movie on a spaceship. I 100% know exactly what to do with this. Don't overthink it, basically, was the thing. And that's what's crazy about it is we talk about a lot of the details coming in the second movie. It's like, because the second movie is way more of a sci-fi movie. Like it's got all this stuff. It's building,
got space marines and spaceships and finding colonies.
It's
and
James Cameron,
uncovering mysteries.
so it's all the toys. It's all the bells and whistles. This movie is so stripped down, and you realize, like, man, there's some stuff implied about the world, but really one of the things Ridley Scott did was he really just stripped it down to, I'm going to put you on this ship, and you're just going to be stuck there.
Yeah, and you're not going to get out until the damn thing explodes.
Yeah, and that's it. And so, my God, what I love a movie that can make you feel that kind of tension. That when the movie's over, you're like, oh Jesus, I've been through something.
The fact that the opening credits of this movie are all just, this is the set we're going to be using for the rest of the film.
Yep.
There is one exception when they go out to find the space jockey ship on LV-426. Other than that, we are in this ship. The only thing you don't see in the opening sequence is the weird drippy chain room.
I can't remember who I was listening to somebody talk about. They're like, we don't fully know what the Nostromo's mission was, but it involved a lot of wet chains. Whatever they were doing, they needed a lot of wet chains for it.
I mean, it's a freight hauler. They're hauling minerals.
Yes. Once again, all very vague, but just enough to go like, okay, yeah, this world feels real. And like I said, and then the fact that you have these very not glammed up actors, even as stunning as Sigourney Weaver is, they aren't playing her that way.
Everyone is sweaty and dirty, and they've got steam blowing on them all the time, and they're wearing greasy clothing, and they don't like the food they're eating, and they're smoking.
I was going to say, the most 70s thing is the casual smoking, right? Like,
smoking on a spaceship, right?
Is insane now for us to watch that. But back then, you're just like, but that further adds to, I'm sure, that blue-collar thing of like, yeah, I'm on the job, let me light up a cig, and, like... It's the same reason they're smoking in Ghostbusters, too, right? You just go like, oh, yeah, because they're just like freight haulers. These guys are longshoremen or whatever. They're just, this is not...
Well, and there's already a clear division in the, like, labor here on the ship. When we have Brett and Parker talking about, like, oh, we're doing all the real work. What are they doing? Meanwhile, we see the rest of the crew is, like, up flying the spaceship.
Yeah.
Ash is there looking creepy because that's what Ian Holm does this whole movie.
I will say that, like, you don't know what Ash's deal is, of course, but you are like, that guy knows more than he's saying, doesn't he? It's well done.
I was really struck this time around by his performance at the dinner table after the facehugger comes off of Kane the first time.
Right. Because
him just like the subtle camera moves over to him as his eyes keep flicking over to Kane.
You go like,
oh, he knows what's about to happen. At least he knows something's about to happen.
I will say that's one of the great things about this movie, that you can rewatch it and go like, oh, I know what's going to happen, but there is something. Now I'm watching home and you're like, I don't know if he knows exactly what's going to happen, but he knows something's going to happen. And of course, the cool story that's been told a million times from that I'm sure you've heard is Ridley Scott did not show them the effect. So the actors did not know what was going to happen, and he filmed it with like 8 cameras so that he could get everyone's real reactions. And the thing was, it malfunctioned, and the malfunctions in the movie, it was supposed to just come right out of him, but the fact that like punch to come out of him was actually the puppet malfunctioning. But Ridley Scott was like, that's so much more disturbing that it like has to work to get out of this guy.
It's like a bird coming out of an eggshell. It has to work its way out.
Yeah, man. Oh, poor John Hurt. One of our finest actors, too. The great John Hurt.
I think John Hurt and Ian Holm give great, like, something is wrong with me, I'm freaking out performances. Because
absolutely.
Ian Holm has it when he's, like, gets bashed in the head with the fire extinguisher and his, like, robot body is freaking out. And John Hurt gives an amazing, something is tearing its way out of my chest.
That's a fun thing to put yourself in the mind of, like, what I like is the reveal. If you're like, well, Holm's up to something. What you don't know is he's a fucking robot. And even when
his head snaps back like a Pez dispenser.
Oh, it's such a great effect too. And the cool effect, I've always been obsessed with the milky blood or whatever that's in him, the whatever the fluid in him is.
I always think of it as robot blood.
Yeah, exactly. It's robot blood. Yeah. But just when you first see that, when he's coming after Ripley and just the one streak of it coming down, and you're like, what the hell's that about?
Because it's also kind of his sweat, like it's just seeping out of him.
Yeah, you're like, uh-oh, this guy's
like that's some kind of like robot stress response. I don't know.
One of the weirdest murder attempts in film history: a rolled up magazine down someone's throat.
Yeah, rewatching that sequence, like I'm not quite sure what triggers the like degeneration of Ash from like cool, collected scientist who is willing to watch all of these crew people die to like twitching maniac robot. Yeah, it seems like he has some kind of internal fight that like he doesn't want to have to kill Ripley, but he is determined to do it.
Once she becomes any threat to his mission, it's just like must destroy.
Yeah, but the way he plays it in that scene, it feels like he's fighting himself to do it because he's like glancing around and kind of twitchy and nervous.
There's some
when he
sort of like
picks her back up and throws her into that corner to try to jam the magazine down her throat.
I also like when he grabs Yaphet Kotto, like just puts his hand on his chest, and it's like, you fight, like, because whatever he's doing to him with just his robot, the one-hand robot strength.
Imagine someone with like so strong that they could dig their fingers into your pectoral.
Yeah,
that's just like
Yaphet Kotto. But I mean, everyone's great in this movie. But I always loved Yaphet Kotto, and just he is the most guy in this movie who's like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah,
I just work here. Come on. I don't need this shit. I do feel like he's maybe the one I'm saddest dies of the group.
Yeah, though I will say the reveal of him and Lambert's death
Yeah.
got me this time. Insofar as like Lambert is hanging and swinging on something, and it's never shown. We just see swinging feet, and it made me sort of break from the movie for a minute, going like, "Wait, hold on, what? Why would the alien put her up on a meat hook or something?"
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because once again, the alien is so ill-defined in this movie, purposefully. It is so this other thing, which I think, as we talk about the alien, leads us to a name we have to mention, which is H.R. Giger.
Oh, that weird Swede.
And the weird roundabout way that Giger gets involved in this movie is Dan O'Bannon, after writing the first draft of this, got hired to write Jodorowsky's Dune. And then one of the production artists on that was H.R. Giger. And then the idea of once I saw his stuff, I started to conflate it with my script and go like, ooh, that's creepy and otherworldly. And because that is the thing about this movie. Without the Giger designs, this movie could have still been scary, but it wouldn't have been scary in the same way. It really is this whole idea of O'Bannon talked about wanting an alien who felt like an alien. Not just a guy, but like that doesn't even make sense to my brain when I look at it.
Well, because you have this stock image of what an alien, quote unquote, is in your head in American pop culture, and it is dude with weird head. And that is reinforced by everything from Star Trek to any of the 50s sci-fi movies. Like, it's either dude with weird head or big eyeball. Like, there's no in between.
Right. I mean, you think about the pilot of Star Trek, the Telosians, who are the aliens that capture Pike in the first pilot. They're just guys with pulsing giant heads. Like, that is just what it... I mean, and Star Trek will later try to explain why every alien in the world of Star Trek is humanoid. It's not my favorite episode. Because it's just like, nobody needed that. It's another one of those where it's like you're trying to fix something that didn't need to be fixed.
Well, I'm so glad you didn't like that episode, John, because Star Trek Discovery doubles down on that and makes it the plot of their last season.
I'm aware. There's a reason I don't watch Star Trek Discovery.
Fair enough.
The less said, the better.
No, H.R. Giger's design here of this creature that is like recognizable enough.
It's got enough of a
2 arms, 2 legs,
mammal-esque appearance.
Yeah.
But it's
so disturbingly organic that like the bits you recognize of it should belong under skin and muscles.
Yeah. And then you get up to like it doesn't have eyes, at least not as we know them, and it's got this long, and it's like slick and black, and it's got this tail that basically just looks like a weapon. And the thing, it's another thing where it's like we take for granted now. And these will be my comments for future to preview some of my comments for future sequels. One of the problems with trying to make Alien a horror movie to this day is now we really know this thing. Mm-hmm. Now I can go down to, where we live. If you go to Milwaukee, where the Dark Horse offices are, you can see one in their window. They have a life-size alien. And I remember seeing it as a kid, and it was cool as hell. And it is cool as hell. But it's not scary to me anymore because I've read all the comics, I've played the video games. Like, this idea about, like, but when that thing showed up in 1979, people were like, what the fuck is that?
Especially, I mean, it arrives on the scene by erupting out of someone's chest.
Yeah.
And is always slimy and covered in blood, and like you can barely make it out. I mean, the fact that they hold camera on the chest burster when it comes out as it's like slowly scanning the room as it's covered in Kane's viscera.
And it does just a little... And everyone is appropriately playing it because it's very real. They didn't know what it was going to look like, and they're just going, Jesus, what in... what?
And it speaks to the design factors that I think go into the creature itself, but also how we're introduced to it. Because, like, all of Giger is all over the Space Jockey ship as well, just in terms of the architecture of it.
Of course, yeah. Otherworldly, alien. When you get, I mean, that was also so. And once again, maybe we could talk about possibly misguided, but of course, everybody was always asking, what the hell was the deal with that stuff? Because the alien that they find on the planet, which came to be known as the space jockey, was so foreign and unusual that Ridley Scott made a whole movie explaining it, and we will talk about whether that was a good idea.
To Prometheus eventually, yes.
But yes, everything was so instantly like nobody had ever seen anything like this. This isn't Star Wars. This isn't Star Trek. This is something else entirely. Even if it's loosely in the same genre as those things and starts from this familiar place of the giant spaceship coming overhead, it almost feels like, I don't know if that would, but it almost feels like Ridley Scott is doing that on purpose, right? Where it's like, I'm going to give you the kind of imagery you expect when you go to a space movie before I take you into hell itself, basically, right? Like,
well, but he is already denying expectations of what people think a space movie, quote unquote, should be.
Yeah.
And obviously that's a very like reductive way that a lot of mainstream, especially reviewers at the time, would talk about science fiction. It was like, oh, it's one of them space movies. Now, of course, as we are discussing this film now, saying a space movie means nothing because it's not a genre, it's a setting.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think that's the interesting thing about this movie is this movie almost invents a subgenre, right? Like the space horror movie has become ubiquitous in film, in novels, in comic books, in video games, like something like Dead Space, right? Like all of that kind of goes back to this. I don't know that this was actually first. I'm sure other people had done scary stuff set in space, but this created an aesthetic for it, a type of subgenre trope.
Sure. And like the idea of something horrible happening in space, is not new by any means.
No, certainly
I mean,
not.
2001: A Space Odyssey predates this by 10 years.
Sure, and that's definitely like, AI gone mad and the threat it poses to you.
Sure, but it also, part of the threat there is I'm trapped in a place with it, and outside is the most anathema to existing environment you can imagine, which is the vacuum of space.
Which we've talked about on May the Panel Be With, is never really a thing you feel in Star Wars.
No. I mean, you can step outside and shoot a Minoc if you're sitting inside a space slug for some reason.
Yeah, exactly. And like Trek kind of sometimes does it, but
depends
it's not,
which Trek.
Yeah, and it's certainly not an omnipresent feeling in that franchise. So that would,
I mean, and you have so many release valves in Trek of just like, okay, even if you get spaced, like somebody could catch you with a transporter beam and you're probably going to be okay.
Right. Yeah. It's always like whenever that does happen in Star Trek, it is like, holy fucking Jesus Christ. Whereas
this, it is just like, okay, there's an internal threat on the ship, and 2001's The Space it is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
But
the ship itself is trying to kill you in 2000.
Right. Yeah. And this, it does feel like that as well a little bit, because like
Mother and
tight corridors and like.
Well, I mean, that's the genius of, as you talk about, that establishing shot is, I always talk about this in action movies or in thrillers, as the case here. Geography is so incredibly important. He just gives you all the geography you need in his opening shots.
Right. But the real geography, and like other haunted house movies have done this too, you get the wide shot of the place where the horror is happening, and it seems innocuous.
Right.
Because once you remove yourself and get so far away, as the audience, oh, the bad stuff is happening in there. In this movie, whenever you do that, you know that you, as the audience, are in a place where none of the characters would be able to survive. In another haunted house movie, you pull the camera far enough away from the haunted house, you think as an audience member, if our main characters could just get to where I am now, they could get out and be safe. That's not true in this movie.
No, and that's the thing, that this doesn't have the just get out the house, the thing that gave us the title of Get Out from Jordan Peele, right? That's the classic horror movie frame. There's nowhere to go here. Eventually there becomes the shuttle, but even that, of course, gets invaded as well, which is another great turn from a writing standpoint in this. Is the whole thing at the end of the movie is, fuck, we got to blow up the ship, get in the escape shuttle, and get out of here. And Ripley does it, and we see it explode, and even the music starts to come in like, okay, it's over. And then, oh shit, the thing is on here with her, and suddenly now it's a one-on-one battle between our incredibly outmatched hero,
who has already stripped down to her underwear.
Yep. Which, much has been written about whether or not that's misogynistic, and
It's male gazy at the very least.
the way it's shot is male gazy. I like it in the generous way to read it is she's now completely stripped of her defenses and then had to just put on the spacesuit, right? So there's a vulnerability to it. The way it's shot, you can't deny the male gaziness of it. I don't know about it. I don't know if it's an inherently flawed conceptually, but yes. Or it didn't have to be this specific underwear.
It was TNA for like, look, you can't escape some of the schlockiness that existed in the late 70s. That was just the fact that we didn't see anyone topless in this movie is actually incredibly restrained.
They're
for
as
the
clothed
era.
as they, because I'm surprised they're as clothed as they are in the cryopods.
Yeah, exactly. Like, considering the time in which this film was made, that's actually a little astounding.
Because I think that's where you get a more artistic-minded director like Ridley Scott helps. Is Roger Corman would have, well, you've got to. Gentlemen, you've got to. I'm sorry, it's what sells.
Especially in an R-rated film when you're already like, look, this is already rated R.
Well, I think that's another thing that also takes it away from the Star Wars thing. It's almost just like, hey, you took your kids to Star Wars, leave your kids at home for Alien.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's sort of that thing about this one's for the adults, and this is gonna fucking terrify the adults.
Well, because like conceptually, I want to. We'll get further into this as the franchise go on, but like the concept of the xenomorphs in this franchise is so inherently disturbing and terrifying, and so many other space horror and just horror in general have iterated on this idea over the years. And I don't even think xenomorphs here are necessarily original, but the idea of it implanting a seed in you that then becomes the evil is like so intrinsic to the horror of this franchise, and whether or not it lands as horror, it goes back and forth depending on how deep you get into that, I guess.
There's something even more disturbing than it just killing you, right? But it using you as a host to further because this thing, from all we can tell in this movie, and even going forward, these things have no impulse other than to repopulate at the expense of other races, right? This is pure evil. This is not a Star Trek thing where it's like, if only we can communicate with it. No, this can't be reasoned with. It has no ability to communicate, as far as we're aware. It seems to only exist to hunt and kill.
Calling it evil is maybe even too much of a stretch. It's evil when it is presented with a human being, because its whole instinct, I mean, it is an animal, right? It's a perfect organism. Right. Ash even has this line in the movie of your false what does he say precisely? You're like your illusions of morality. It is stripped of those things.
It's a perfect organism, and his last line of, "You have my sympathies."
Yeah.
Fucking hell, man.
The difference between a creature like this and the Predator can be reasoned with to an extent. It can be like, it can have logic framed before it. Obviously, its intent is to hunt and kill you, and I find that its intent is a little more evil than simply the alien existing to propagate it.
The alien doesn't care. The alien just wants cares only about itself. So it will use and destroy anything that's in its way, right?
Yeah.
The Predator, though, is setting out to murder. However, the Predator does have some semblance of morality. It doesn't kill things that it views as not worthy of its time, right?
True. That's very true.
And we'll get into that going forward, but it's sort of the thing of it only hunts hunters, basically, right? It's sort of like it's an alpha predator.
But that won't stop it from killing indiscriminately sometimes.
This is true, and it's another thing, much like in comics, depends on the movie, right?
Yeah. At least where the xenomorph is concerned, it is the invasion of self that is like the root of its horror. And I think what's so interesting about this franchise, and we'll get into it more when we get to Aliens, is how that horror knob is turned from movie to movie, because sometimes a single alien is the biggest threat you will ever find.
Right.
Sometimes you're dealing with a whole hive, and how that undulates can really change the tone of the movie.
Absolutely.
And it goes back and forth between these first 4 Alien movies. Every single time the pendulum swings wildly.
It is. That's the thing. This is, and I feel like we're going to end up talking about a lot of these franchises over the course of the IP Squad series in general. Is this whole idea about there's always this, because like so much of the press about this new movie is like, we're just trying to get back to that first movie. You know, there's always this sort of thing about this is a franchise where they're one of the brilliant things, and once again to preview next week's conversation, one of the brilliant things about the second movie is it doesn't it's a different genre actually, even though but it takes into it. James Cameron was smart enough to know I can't do that again. That's a fool's errand. So let me take in a different direction. And the thing is, the problem there being going forward is then everybody is stuck between those two poles.
Yeah, and until James Cameron, or not James Cameron, but Ridley Scott comes back to put a hand on the franchise, at which point he like bends the pole around into a loop. I don't know how to describe what he did with Prometheus.
Well, and it's so with Prometheus, and then Alien Covenant is its own thing where he now is trying to keep doing that, but also try to get back to the movie he made. Very strange movies, and those will be interesting conversations. But but that's the thing about this movie is it is just so simple and so primal.
Yeah.
In the way that a lot of the best horror is. It doesn't get bogged down in details. And that's kind of a thing actually a little bit like Star Wars in there's a lot implied by this movie.
Yeah. I mean, when we talk about the relative evil of the xenomorphs versus Predator, one of the things that really struck me about this first film specifically is exactly what the xenomorphs' goal is seems to just be murder.
Right.
Obviously the different cut with Ridley Scott and like the whole like possibility of transforming Dallas into another xenomorph in like a weird ooze pod also enters into the conversation there, but that's not present in the cut most people have seen of this film.
Right, yeah, because I mean, like if you fire up the 4K that I have, it presents you with play movie or play the 2003, but it defaults to the movie. The first option, if you just want to play the movie, is the theatrical cut.
And actually, I'm curious to see because I watched this on, weirdly enough, Disney Plus.
Well, because both the Alien and Predator are owned by Disney now, which is very weird.
It's strange. Yeah, that's for sure. But whether or not there is even the option to watch the director's cut, let's see, extras. No, it's just the trailer. Because sometimes they'll like have alternate takes on the movie that you can watch on Disney Plus, like the IMAX versions and stuff.
I do love that. I'm such a nerd for aspect ratio that I am like, yes, proper aspect ratio in IMAX versions. IMAX is tall, not wide. But I think I'm still waiting for. I still don't think they've put the Rogue cut of Days of Future Past on there, so I'm still clinging to my Blu-ray of that because I much prefer the Rogue cut. Because it actually part of the movie doesn't make sense actually once you know the Rogue aspect of it. But that's a separate
the
matter.
Whole like Kitty getting stabbed thing.
Yeah, why is that in the movie unless it's so that Rogue could take her powers and finish the thing? That's why she got wounded.
In the like theatrical cut, it reads as like a weird escalation on a ticking clock that stops making sense the second you think about it.
Exactly.
It's time travel.
Yeah. So that's the thing that's crazy about this movie. Like I said, it's just how simple it is, and you do every time I realize I'm just like, oh right, I do think of the second movie a lot because the second movie just has more stuff in it.
I think about this first movie a lot because it taps into something so intrinsic about the horror I like. One thing that I think, one of the reasons I was brought onto this particular series is that I'm a big scaredy cat.
I will say there's sort of a thing that is just like, I think a lot of people who listen to our stuff or know you are like, Gorgone's talking about Alien? That's pretty scary. particularly this
It
first one.
is.
This first one is the most out and out like scary movie of the bunch. I think others try to get to it, but like this is on the list of people talking about the scariest movies ever made. Right?
Sure, and it's a dated film. I think it's less psychologically scary to me than something like a home invasion film
Well,
would
because it's
be.
not. I'm not worried about running into a xenomorph.
Exactly. And I think to myself when Kane is approaching the eggs, no, you idiot, don't put your face in front of the egg you find on a weird alien
Oh, but
spaceship.
he's just got to.
He's just got to, yeah.
He's just got to, yeah. It's unfortunate.
But the reason I mentioned that, I think this ties back into like the whole H.R. Geiger of it all as well, is he tapped into this cosmic horror idea of the like the biological machine, right? It's that all of these little gooey bits inside of us lock together in a way that creates a thinking, moving human. And when you stop to analyze how all those pieces work together, it's just gross.
That is a thing about this movie, and I think it's an interesting push and pull between the Giger and the Scott, because Ridley Scott is known for polished, cold movies almost, right? Like you look at Blade Runner, it's all rain and blues and stuff like that, and that's what I think of. One of my favorite Ridley Scott movies is a movie called Black Rain, which is about Michael Douglas fighting the Yakuza, but it's all smoke and neon lights and, you know, Michael Douglas in mirrored sunglasses. So I think that's an interesting thing is this movie is not as gross. This movie is gross in places with the Giger stuff, but probably not as gross as other filmmakers. You have a director, you have this movie that is so ready to be exploitational schlock, and a director who is so not that guy that I think it really makes this movie genius, because what you have is all the Giger designs, but filtered through a guy who is all precision, high-tech stylization. And so you get what becomes the alien, aesthetic through those two visions colliding.
Do you know off the top of your head how much Giger helped design the like xenomorph stuff? Was he also like helping with like set design and like overall aesthetic of the Nostromo?
No, not that stuff.
Okay.
I don't
It's
believe
interesting
so.
to me. The reason I ask that is because there is this like, while it is less organic and less Giger-esque, there is this really kind of grim, kind of dirty, gross, almost you feel like you're inside of an internal organ vibe to the Nostromo,
Yes.
depending on which part of the ship you're in. Like, there's the absolute zenith of drippy chain room in terms of like, what purpose does this serve? Why is everything dripping? Is it just for chains that clink in the distance?
Yeah, I mean, I think so I'm looking at it right now. It's interesting because Giger designed and worked on all the alien aspects of the film, which he claimed he designed to appear organic and biomechanical in contrast to the Nostromo and all the human elements of the movie. But there is an interesting, because I want to mention I just had his name, the art director in this movie who designed all the other stuff. I'll get it, but anyway, but there is, the movie does have that vibe as you're talking about. They do go together very well, even if they are in contrast to each other.
Yeah, because the Nostromo is meant to feel like some kind of combination of a submarine and like an oil platform, right?
Oh, definitely.
And
Ron Cobb is the name of the guy I'm talking about. And his whole idea was to make it oppressive, function. This whole idea about there's nothing homey about this. This ship is designed only for the work it has to do. It's not inviting or comforting in any way.
Yeah. And while the Giger stuff on the space jockey ship and like the xenomorph design in general, while it is by no means welcoming, it does feel like the curves and organic nature of it brings you into a familiar place, and the Nostromo is this unfamiliar. Like, most of us have never been on a submarine.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us have never served time on an oil derrick out in the middle of the ocean.
And yet I'm watching this movie going, this really reads as a submarine. Like, because I was thinking about, particularly when he's using, I mean, this movie, one of the first movies to really heavily use steady cams was John Carpenter's Halloween, which was the year before this. And this movie really takes advantage of the steady cam for all the sequences where we're ripping through the ship. And then another movie, maybe the next year or the year after, pretty quickly after this, was Wolfgang Petersen's Das Boot, which has a lot of this vibe of going through the submarine. And similar to this, one of the things, they built the 3 decks of the Nostromo as they weren't stacked on top of each other, but they were in 3 separate stand stages, but they were built as one piece. I mean, you could go through an entire deck all as one thing. You weren't connecting different pieces. So that allows the actors to run through and the camera to follow them, which is so cool. The ability, it really does feel alive. You're not cutting from set to set.
Yeah, I actually, the use of shaky cam and like steady cam in the back half of this film specifically was notable to me. It made me start down an internet rabbit hole. It's like, what is the like origins of like handheld shaky cam? And it goes back to the 20s because of course it
Sure,
does.
of course, yeah. But the really intense use of it in like a major studio movie starts with Carpenter, really. Halloween was like, because he wanted that POV of the stalking killer. And that's really not that hyper. This is a more shaky cam than that. He wanted that incredible glide that then De Palma also really seized upon as well. But yeah,
well,
here,
because this movie also uses the whole Star Trek trick of like, if the ship is shaking, then we're just going to shake the camera, and the actors are basically staying still.
And it's amazing, actually, how well that still works, and they still employ that on most Star Trek things. That effect still fucking works. No, it's incredible how, like J.J. Abrams talked about, I would just sit there and shake the camera, myself. Like, it's incredible how well it works. There's only one blue screen shot in this movie. There's an interesting tidbit.
If I had to guess, I would say it is with the alien getting sucked out the back of the shuttle.
It is the shuttle flying past the Nostromo as it lifts off.
That makes sense. Okay. Because
Yeah.
the 2 different models and they have them on different planes.
Everything else was just old school double exposure, stuff laid on top of each other. Filmed against black backdrop, which is, you can go back into our Meet the Monsters archives and talk about, like, that's how they did the Invisible Man shit back in the 30s. So it's still amazing. They did have motion control cameras at this point, which was huge, obviously, for the benefit of, because all that stuff was invented for Star Wars.
Yep.
Highly recommend.
For those who don't know, like, motion control cameras are like cameras that you can set up on a crane or some kind of robot arm rig, and the motion that they go through across usually a model or some kind of predetermined like route is so precisely controlled, and that's how you can get those like smooth glides across certain things.
And then for Back to the Future Part 2, it was where, or maybe was it? No, I think it was actually Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But Zemeckis then brought in the computer-controlled motion control, where you could program it to make the exact same movement every single time.
Yeah, and that made you able to do multiple takes a lot easier.
And that's where you can have like multiple actors in the same shot and or somebody interacting with a cartoon, because then you're not worried about, are these things going to match up. So, but yeah, this let's talk a little bit about the reaction of this movie when it came out. People were pretty fucking scared of it.
I just saw a picture the other day. I want to see if I can still track this down.
Yeah.
There's some photo of a test screening of Alien with people reacting to the chestburster scenes specifically. And like, you can see the full gamut of human emotion across this like 2 rows of seating, with like people like literally clutching their pearls, some people like putting their hands over their faces, and one nerd who looks exactly like us just grinning his ass off in the back row.
As Meet the Monsters calls Brendan Jones and I say, profoundly broken human beings like us who see something like that and go, that's just sweet. We love the creature design,
Yeah.
They test screened this in 2 places. but primarily the main test screening that was in Dallas. And editor Terry Rollins said, literally, people were screaming and running out of the theater during the movie, which I just love the idea of somebody being like, I can't.
You hear stuff like that, and you just like wonder, like, were people just more scared of things back then? Like, you never hear about people like lunging out of theaters anymore.
Well, the big one, it was before this. I don't actually know what year. What year was Exorcist? Because that was one of the first ones where, like, part of the promotion of the movie was like, oh, people are fainting. 73, so well before this, actually. But that was where they were like, there were legendary stories of, like, people are fainting in the movie. It's just like, that was, like I said, and then they, like, used that in the promotion where they'd be like, this guy had a fucking heart attack during Exorcist, man. Like, that, you got to see this thing. This is going to fuck you up. Which is so interesting because actually, similar to this movie, Exorcist really builds slowly. I think a lot of people see it now, and we'll get into this when we get to the highs and lows segment. Some people are like, it's boring, man. It's boring, dude. Come on. Pick it up. Let's go. Let's go. That's the thing. This movie does have one of the best builds when you talk about not only the shaky cam, but just how frantic this movie gets down the stretch when it's so subdued early on.
Oh, I mean, that's part of the genius and like the tonal control of this film, I think, is like the big thing that Ridley Scott really nails is tonal control, right? Because you have this whole opening section where you're this gritty, dirty, business as usual crew that we're introduced to. And the tension that is built in we're watching a movie called Alien. This seems to be about space truckers. What are we doing here? Right. And then we find the egg, and then we get to the face hugger. And then when the chest burster scene happens, that's when everything goes ballistic for the rest of the film. Because from that point on, people are dying left and right. And you have Ripley trying to like maintain control over the situation. When you have Dallas, my read on it this time, Dallas basically gives up. At a certain point in the movie.
Yeah.
And like he is nominally the one in charge because he's the captain, but as soon as he has to start making hard decisions, he kind of breaks and panics.
Well, I think that's an interesting thing about this that separates this from a lot of other stuff is these guys are, once again, they're blue collar, working Joes. So this guy being the captain, he's not a military captain. It's not like captain. So it's just like, this wasn't covered in training. Like, this guy's not really equipped to handle the situation. And what's interesting, of course, is Ripley is. She is the opposite. She goes into like, all right, here's what we're going to do. And then, I think that the interesting thing is, and it's so brilliant in Cameron's second movie, is, all right, well, everyone is a gung-ho military person. And now you have Ripley as the person going, you guys need to be more careful. Like, sort of thing where it's an interesting, you flip it. We'll get to, look, I feel like there are alien people and there are aliens people, and you can like both, but you love one more than the other, and I'm definitely the second movie guy.
I think it comes down to whether or not you had the toys from the cartoon that never happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, but also just, I think, being the kind of nerds we are, because I'm guessing you maybe lean more towards the second movie?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because it's the badass movie. And if you're a real sci-fi nerd like we are, we're like, Space Marines, future guns, robot suits, fuck yeah. Like,
Well,
it's the crowd pleaser.
I am extremely biased because, like, look, I wasn't alive when either of those films came out.
We saw both of them as existing, yeah. I'm
coming into this franchise having already played a lot of StarCraft.
Yes.
So when I see the movie where I can see the Zerg fighting the Terran Confederacy, I'm like, hell yeah, I know what's happening here.
It's a very comfortable place for us to be in, where there are Space Marines and shit. And just like
fighting,
of course, man,
weird bug monsters.
Yeah, Starship Troopers and shit like that. Also, I mean, that was big when we were kids. So, and also the alien movies we had as kids sucked. I'm sorry, preview for those. I'm not going to be kind to Alien 3 in particular. I'll just say
well, and I
know it has its defenders.
Like weirdly like Resurrection, but I think that's mostly because I've seen it so many times on cable.
We'll talk about it. I don't hate Resurrection. We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there though. But it's
I am
certainly not great.
I don't want to spoil things for you, but I am so curious to have you specifically watch Resurrection and then Romulus in short order.
I purposely have not seen Romulus because I want to see it for the first time and give you a raw reaction on here. And obviously you're not spoiling, and nor should you spoil anything about what you thought of it. We'll say
I will not.
Yeah, you can hold that. But by the way, Siskel and Ebert, thumbs down on Alien, folks.
Yeah, I know. I know that one.
Thumbs down. Isn't that interesting? And
I'm guessing Siskel thought it was probably like too bloody and was just made for shock value. And I'm guessing Ebert thought, ooh, what was his complaint about it? It's got to be like the characters aren't there, right?
Well, Ebert, so Siskel said, this is just a haunted house movie and wrote it off as horror junk. So kind of what you're saying. And Ebert's point was the movie's much more interesting before they find the alien.
Oh,
he liked all the people. He thought that was anything because then they're just running around. Although 20 years later, Ebert did say, "I was wrong. It's a brilliant movie."
Wow. All right.
Yeah. Revise it, and he ended up putting it in his book of the great movies of all time. So it was mostly met with generally positive reviews when it came out. But there were some people who, it's so interesting. Like, it's just like, boy, if you think this is schlock, like a Corman movie might kill you then. Like, you know, because it's just like, this is the thing about this movie. And they talk about this, like the script and setup is schlock. This is one of those movies, and I love movies like this, where it's like, it's just the people who made it were making it at such a high quality that they made something brilliant out of what is a schlock set. This is a B-movie storyline.
Mm-hmm. Oh, those are some of my favorite genre films, though, is the genre films who are made with such sincerity and like love of the craft that they transcend what might otherwise be something that is pulp and throwaway.
Right. I mean, that's why I mentioned Halloween. It's why Halloween's the best slasher movie to me, because it's every trope of slasher movie, but it's the way John Carpenter made that movie that you're like, man, everything pales in comparison to this.
I mean, Carpenter, I think, is something we're going to probably invoke quite a bit, because one point of comparison between Xenomorphs is his work on The Thing, right?
Yes.
Is like another alien monster that invades someone's body and you don't know how to handle it.
And actually, Carpenter's whole career is basically what we just described, right? He's a guy with B-movie taste, but brilliant filmmaking sensibilities.
Yeah.
So a lot of his movies are, Escape from New York, made by a different filmmaker, could just be another trash post-apocalyptic movie. But he makes it a classic.
They Live, same way.
Yeah. Oh, fuck. They Live is so good. And the difference is, though, Carpenter was not appreciated in the moment. He was shit on by critics, and nobody went to his movies, which is a bummer. Whereas Ridley Scott, of course, goes on to become one of the most successful and influential filmmakers of all time. But had no interest in returning to this franchise. In fact, I think was very much like a sequel. What, are you fucking kidding me? I don't do that shit.
Well, he was busy becoming, like you say, a like well-regarded director, and even at the time and even in the near future after this film, I feel like the expectation was like, it's a space movie. Why would I go back to that genre?
I've done it. Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting how much he's changed his tune, obviously, as an older gentleman. Seeing as we're recording this, let's see, just a couple months before he releases Gladiator 2. So
I hope it's good. I do, but why would you make a sequel to Gladiator?
I don't know. The trailer looks pretty awesome, though, I gotta say.
Yeah.
And play this back if that movie sucks, of course, and people go like, it did look pretty awesome, man. I don't know. I'm in it for Denzel, no question about that, obviously.
Sure, yeah.
They had me at Denzel. Well, Gorgone, we'll finish up here this episode the way we always do on here with a segment we call Highs and Lows. This is where, of course, for those tuning in for the first time, I'll read a 10-star review and a 1-star review from the folks who feel the need to write reviews on IMDb.
Yes, we are harvesting your reviews for our entertainment value.
I mean, because I've long said I've never had the impulse to do it. Have you ever written an IMDb review?
Written?
Yeah.
No.
No. Because I don't understand the impulse. Letterboxd I understand, because that's a community entirely built around that.
Well, in Letterboxd, I've always viewed as more of like a personal log that people can also review independently.
Yeah.
IMDb reviews, I feel about IMDb reviews the same way I feel about a lot of independent film criticism at large, and that is you're trying to input your perceptions and values of what you think is good in a film and state them as fact.
Ah, yes. Where it's like when you go on Letterboxd, it's like you're like, oh, come in, see what I'm into.
Yeah. So that being said, what is the facts that we are being given
well,
today, John?
I always start with the one that's closer to our opinion, so that we can get the sort of counterpoint second.
10-star reviews on this movie have just to be like, there's too many of them to count, right?
There definitely are. So I sort of pick. I always try to pick one for these from each side. I always try to pick one that sort of sums up what the general vibe I see just sort of scanning through them is. So that's indicative of what people are saying. So this comes to us from Gogoshka. I don't know. Gogoshka. Who calls this movie, the title of the review is A Timeless Science Fiction Masterpiece.
Correct. Moving on.
Alien is... I think we're not going to have a problem with any of this. Alien is one of those special films that has aged very, very well. Even now, after nearly 40 years, everything about it still feels fresh. The restrained natural performances by the fantastic cast, the outstanding production design, the beautiful ominous score by Jerry Goldsmith. We didn't actually talk about that. Goldsmith's score is really understated and super effective.
Yeah, because again, it's the counterbalance between silences and tension building music that really make this movie hum.
And that's what's great about Goldsmith is this is a guy who also did the Star Trek score. So this is a guy who can do the most blaring, horned, epic thing, and then turn around and do this thing that is mostly just like, kind of like
tones.
I mean, the opening sequence of the movie, we didn't talk about that either, but became iconic. The way that the letters form Alien, they kind of just fade in line by line until it says Alien.
That every other Alien movie after this has a take on.
Yeah, and it's always just like, don't do it. It's not as good. Anyway, sorry. The realistic lived-in look of space freighter Nostromo's interior, it actually feels less dated than many science fiction films that were made much later. I agree with that. Which is quite an astonishing feat. Even though what we now must be considered retro technology inside the ship doesn't necessarily have to be viewed as anachronistic in the face of our obvious recent advancements, because it's the most simple technological equipment that is usually robust enough to survive the longest under harsh conditions, like the extreme temperatures in space. Interesting theory. That's an interesting idea.
Well, and those ideas also play into like the retrofuturism of Star Wars, right? Like big clunky technology. The idea behind that would be like, well, it's durable.
Well, I feel like this is also a movie too where the design is so smart and so inherent that I'm not going like, what is this old computer? Because it just feels of a piece. I'm just it's the retrofuturism of the time where you just go like, oh. Yeah, that fits in this world. So I'm not going like, wait a minute, if this is our future, I'm just going, this is the world of Alien. That's what the computers look like. I feel it's especially hard.
They make clicky-clacky noises when they go brrr.
Yeah. I feel it's especially hard for science fiction films to stand the test of time, which is kind of inherent to the genre, I suppose, and Alien simply remains an outstanding achievement in that regard. It's a testament to the talent of everyone involved, but especially to the vision of director Ridley Scott. The film was crafted with so much love for every little detail in the designs by Mobius Chris Foss, and in particular Lovecraftian horrors unleashed by Swiss surrealist H.R. Giger are among the best and most iconic in any science fiction film. This isn't just an astounding, timeless piece of entertainment. It's a work of art, 10 out of 10 stars. Agree basically across the board.
I didn't really get into the whole like cosmic horror Lovecraftian side of this. We'll get into that more as we go along, I think, as we talk about like Alien, the xenomorphs as a concept. But that is part of what speaks to me about this franchise and how I can sort of like get past my scaredy cat nature in some of it, is this like supernatural vibe that the xenomorphs come with that the predators don't, which I think
Right.
is what makes them interesting adversaries, and we'll get into that later.
Indeed. Let's go over to the other side, and I will say the biggest slam against this movie is its pacing, which I kind of referenced earlier. There are so many reviews that are like slow, boring, dull, why. It's like watching paint dry. But I think this, yeah.
I understand that if you're coming from a modern perspective in which so many things need to be happening to keep people engaged, you need to be watching or listening to things at like 1.5 1.75 speed to even like stay engaged with them. The mentality drives me crazy, but I understand if you come to this film with that as your lived experience.
That's interesting because that is not at all the case for this person. So let's go.
Oh, okay.
This comes to us from Preppy3.
Trying to be empathetic over here.
I
but
know. I like
mind.
that but I specifically pulled a reviews to avoid that because the title is very overrated -- boring is the title of the review. How this is considered a classic is beyond me. I saw it when it first came out in 1979. I was 16. I was basically bored or disgusted by it. 22 years later, my opinion hasn't changed. Why do I hate this? Let me count the ways. Here we are. It's a numbered list, sir.
Counting down. Okay, Johnny Carson here with his note cards.
At number 1, the plot is old hat. It's basically a haunted house movie set in outer space. I would argue that the second half of that statement is why it's not old hat, but that's it. Yeah. A haunted house movie, sure. But in outer space, oh, that's kind of fresh. Anyway, number 2, there is zero characterization. The crew members are virtually interchangeable. How can you care about somebody getting killed when you don't know who they are? Disagree, obviously.
Disagree. Yeah, moving on.
Number 3, I think kind of on the same point as number 2, getting a bunch of talented actors and giving them nothing to work with.
Are you joking?
I would argue this. One, as we talk about, one of the strengths of this movie is it sort of gives them a platform to then build a character, which is really what works about it. Anyway,
I think the only person who's given like slightly short shrift in this movie is Veronica Cartwright as Lambert. Yeah. I think Lambert is sort of like, basically becomes the Shrieking Violet of this film at a certain point.
Somebody has to, sort of, right? Like. And it's just unfortunate that still she's doing fine work. It is just number 4. This might be the one. Overdone set design. Yes, it's impressive, but it overwhelms what little plot there is. Nice set design does not make a movie. Number 5. People stumble.
I needed this in a black box theater.
Yeah. At a certain point, I'm going like, maybe science fiction isn't for you. Number 5, people stumble around in dark corridors and dark rooms looking for a cat. Not once, but twice. And this is after they know there's a killer alien on board.
Technically 3 times, but go on.
Yeah. And once again, I like the way these build sometimes. Number 6, on that same point. What the hell is a cat doing on a space mission? I don't know, man.
I kind of love that they never actually address why Jonesy is on the Nostromo.
No, and then these start getting simpler. Number 7, the characters act incredibly stupid. Some do. Maybe that guy's.
I would argue.
Maybe John
Kane's the only one who acts like real stupid.
Maybe Kane's just stupid. Maybe that's it. We don't know enough about Kane for me to think that like.
We talk about like this reviewer talks about lack of characterization. The first thing we learn about Kane is that he enthusiastically wants to check out the alien thing.
Yeah, that's it exactly. So he does. If Dallas had put his face on the egg, I might have been like, "That's weird." But Kane, you're like, "No, he seems like a guy's like, what's going on over here?" Number 8. Oh boy, this is my biggest disagreement between me and this writer. Number 8, the alien looks dumb. It's just a guy in a slightly modified alligator suit. Cool set of teeth, though. Yeah, the teeth are cool. I also like that, like, it has another mouth inside of its mouth. That's pretty rad.
I like the weird tubes coming out of its back. I like the fact that you can see a human skull inside the dome of the head sometimes.
This is one of the greatest creature designs in the history of film. It is a
I
masterpiece.
love that it has multiple thumbs and extra fingers. I love that its tail is a hook.
Like at every turn, you're like, that's cool. That's cool. Interesting. So this person's in it. Anyway, number 9, what does the alien do with its victims? 2 of them just disappear. Answered in the director's cut, but that hadn't come out when this person wrote this, so... But anyway, even still, it doesn't matter. But you don't need
that answer. The answer is they get murdered and are in an air vent somewhere.
Yeah, that's the other thing. That's kind of the thing about the director's cut. Like, I didn't need that answer. I don't dislike it. Number 10, why is the alien killing them? What reason? We're never given one. Oh, wait, because it's in the script. That's why.
If it was a lion, would we need a reason?
Yeah. I know, that's sort of the thing, right? Yeah.
A shark, would we need a reason?
It's not meant to have a human an understandable motivation. That's the point of it.
When they started giving the shark in Jaws a motivation is when those movies started getting bad.
When it wanted revenge? It wanted revenge.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, by the way. We are going to be doing a shark franchise season of IP Squad.
Great. Cool.
So that will include both the Jaws franchise and the Deep Blue Sea franchise. Which inherently has...
And Sharknado. If you're not including Sharknado, I don't know what we're doing.
I don't know if I can sit through those. Deep Blue
There's
Sea.
9 of them. You're going to have to.
Jesus. 11. Sigourney Weaver strips down to her underwear for no reason whatsoever at the end.
I can agree with that.
It's not no reason whatsoever. However, the reason is built into the movie, which is still that she's going to get in the cryopod and they were in their underwear. I'm not saying it's not sleazy, but there is a reason. You can argue it's not a good one, but it's still a reason.
Sure, fair enough.
Number 12, and finally, all caps, 5 or 6 exclamation points. It's dull. The only scene that works is the chest burster with John Hurt, but that's only a minute or 2 in a 2-hour film. Long, dull, and stupid. I give this a 1. I wish I could go lower. It deserves a 0. Avoid at all costs. See Aliens instead. That's 100 times better than this. 1 out of 10 stars.
Okay. Well, look. I understand that the building of tension... No, screw this. This guy fucking sucks.
This is just a moron.
I'm throwing my empathy cup over my shoulder.
No, yeah, it's because it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Really. It's just there's no good to come from that. That's just a moron. That's not going, hey, it's not for me. Because that's fine. You can say, hey, it's not for me.
Yes.
It's what you're talking about. It's the objective, this is fact.
Yeah, this movie is dull, not I found this movie dull.
Yeah, it didn't work.
It's saying this movie is boring, not this movie didn't hold my attention. There's differences in language. Words are important.
There's this attitude because like it's something I say and I've been trying to do this more. As an older film fan, I've been trying to say more things like it didn't click with me or it didn't work with me, as opposed I try much less to be like that movie sucked, because
it's that sort of hyperbolic language that creates this like really toxic fan environment with a lot of, especially the franchises we love, right?
Yep. 100%. Yeah, I think some of that is just like, ooh, I don't like the way that feels, so I'm not going to say that. And I generally try not to, even in the later films of these that I don't care for as much. I try to avoid being like, this sucked. It's more just like, ooh, it didn't quite work, or that's why I like the long form podcast discussion anyway, because we can dig into here's why it's not clicking or working, as opposed to just being like, it sucks, moving on. It blows.
But there is some also value in just saying, well, I thought it sucked, moving on.
Right.
It's the like listing 12 things are the objective reasons I think this movie is bad and no one should see it. I wish I could rate it lower. Like, it's that. Answer me this, John. When was that review written? I'm so
2002.
Curious. 2002. So 22 years ago, as of this recording, probably longer by the time you're listening to it.
Well, they're about,
2 decades ago, this sort of rage existed on the internet and festered, and eventually would like cause female leads of a Star Wars movie to quit acting altogether.
For sakes, yeah. Star Wars is its own bag of worms.
I know,
Yeah.
but like,
Yeah.
I get so rankled by this mentality of just like, I didn't like a thing, so it is inherently the worst thing ever.
Yep.
And even like that level of hyperbole of like, you haven't.
And
If you think this is the worst thing ever,
Yeah.
you haven't watched a lot of movies, in my opinion.
Well, that's the other thing too, is like, then in this person's case where you're listing the reasons and you're like, these reasons aren't valid. A lot of them aren't. Like,
They're valid for personal opinion. It's the stating them as objective fact that gets under my skin.
But some of it is invalid objectively in a certain way, where you're just going like, there's none of this.
Yeah, and like, no characterization.
Yeah.
Of the
Like,
actor.
but there
No,
is.
everything they're saying is characterization.
Yeah. It's
And
just like,
you're just, there's a lack of media literacy.
that's the
problem.
thing. It's like a lot of the Star Wars stuff. The big thing I see a lot of people bandy about is like bad dialogue, and you're like, no, objectively, it's not. Like, it's just not. I don't know what to tell you. I've seen bad dialogue. Anyway, next week, of course.
Yeah.
Next week, of course, we're talking about Aliens. Number 1, killer title. Great title.
Just draw that S, puts a couple of dollar signs through it.
Yes, you have heard that story, of course, the famous whiteboard story of he just went up and wrote Aliens, $. But I will say also, and as always, I'll give you the tagline for next week's movie, Gorgone, because it's not as Space No Here Scream is maybe, like I said, in the running for possibly the best tagline I've ever seen. This one's pretty damn good too, though. This time, it's war.
Ooh.
That's pretty awesome. And I'll say that we'll talk about the totally different approach to poster on this one. This one is like, hey man, you know what you're in for. Strap in, baby. It's the 80s. But I will say, not a quick turnaround. 7 years. 1986. So it's not like they didn't immediately rush this into production.
Yeah, because I think it took time for this movie did well, and like I was saying earlier, but I think it did take time to kind of suffuse pop culture
to become a classic.
To where, like, to become a cult classic. Not even a cult classic, a classic.
A legitimate classic. Yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's on the Sight and Sound list of the greatest films ever made, right? Like, it's totally well spoken of. And we'll talk next week about a movie many consider one of the greatest sequels ever made. So
it's definitely in the running.
This
Absolutely.
it's on that list. And I will say, I always love the roller coaster of these seasons, because we're gonna have it real good for a while before we have it real bad.
It's Alien 3 is the turning point, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Personally, Alien 3, once again, but to preview that episode, that movie physically hurts me in a way. Like, I feel like I was assaulted by that movie. So
there's definitely a few in this season that I still haven't seen. I've not seen Alien Covenant.
Okay.
I have not seen The Predator.
The Predator.
Yeah. I believe you were the one who told me not to.
I saw it I saw both of those in the theater, actually. So there's a reason I haven't run to see Romulus, no matter what anyone's saying. It's sort of just like, I won't get fooled again. How many times can you hurt me? These franchises / this franchise.
You keep coming back.
Yeah, I think Romulus is the only one I haven't seen. So,
okay.
But yeah, but that
looking forward to it.
Yeah. Of course, if you want more from us and everything of the Punch Up Entertainment, you want to head over to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/punchupent. That's punchupent. Like I said, you get cool exclusive bonus stuff, including our related case episodes. There's a whole separate patron show, monthly show, where we talk about movies related to that, related to whatever we're talking about on the main feed. This one, I will say, we're going to be getting into, if we talked about this sort of inventing a subgenre, we're going to be talking about what became of that subgenre, basically, over on the related cases.
We have just talked about what it is to be a bad movie. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to watch some truly bad movies on those.
Yeah, at least one of the ones we're talking about, I think, is fun, but I don't know that I can say it's good. And then one of them we will have a guest for, who I believe will literally die for the movie that they were talking about. So
good and cool.
yeah, good and cool indeed. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the IP Squad. Until next week, Case File. It's closed.